Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or at any time that you're listening to this podcast. Thank you for all of the support that you've given down in the valley throughout all these years. And today we're having a quick test from our brand new studio at the Down in the Valley headquarters. I am pleased to announce that we've got on the premises our good friend and co-host Jacob Young. Jacob, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Looking forward to talking soccer again. What more is there to say? Looking forward to it. First time, and it's going to be a good one.
So if you guys are joining us and watching us through the through YouTube and of course through the Down in the Valley Facebook page, we invite you all to check out the podcast, the audio version that is on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you or your favorite podcasting platform. And if you're listening to us through the podcasting platforms, we invite you all to take a look whenever we do go live. We will be doing live shows every Wednesday or Thursday, depending on if there's a midweek game or not. But we will be going live on youtube.com/downinthevalley. So you guys can go ahead and subscribe to us there, and be sure to click on the little bell so you will get notifications every time we do go live or we upload a video. I know today, before coming in and starting the show, I did go to media availability at practice, so I will be uploading those videos to YouTube so you can get some of the reactions from not only some of the players, but also from head coach Wilmer Cabrera. But today we need to be talking about a match that it was a very entertaining match, a surprising match from RGVFC, but ultimately the Toros were unable to get a positive result out of Toyota Field in San Antonio. Jacob, what was going through your mind when you were watching this game?
Well, I think just like anybody else, RGVFC started off very strong in this match, thinking great start, building up that lead, building up a 2-goal lead. And then at halftime, it was the same thing as I think every game this season, even last year was, which was, how are we going to lose this game? How are we going to blow this lead? Mm-hmm. And that's been a common thing, I think, from everybody, not just from us, but just it's frustrating to build a lead, especially on the road, and then whether it's Wilmer, whether it's any player missing an open shot, all of a sudden the momentum goes out the window in the second half. And that's something that we weren't talking about, at least from the start of the season, saying that we were a second half team. This team, RGVFC, knew how, with Wilmer Cabrera's help, knew how to tactically change everything. And now, all of a sudden, that's not the case. And going through my mind exactly is how are we going to blow this lead? All of a sudden, we blow that 2-goal lead, had a chance, missed that goal, called offside or whatever in the end, and just the rest is history with another San Antonio or another South Texas derby going into a draw, even at Toyota Field.
So if you guys want to get a kind of like a summary, a recap of the game on Saturday, I did upload a video on the YouTube channel. You guys want to check it out. I went into in detail like the specific events about what happened in the match. Hopefully this will speed things up as far as the podcast and make it flow a little bit better. But let us know what you think about those kind of videos and how they if they benefit, or do you enjoy us talking about the specific events, kind of describing what happened in the match on the show? Let us know. And huge thank you to everybody. Obviously, if you guys have any opinions, be sure to put it right down there in the YouTube chat. We'll be taking a look later on and see maybe get any questions that you have or any concerns or any hot takes that you might have. You guys are very welcome to post them in the chat, and I will be reading them later on as we go on through the show. So let's start through the very beginning, Jacob, because I think as you mentioned, RGVFC played really well in the first half, and I want to go over the starting 11 for RGVFC in this particular match. So obviously you had Tyler Derrick on goal. You had a line of 4 with Jonathan Ricketts, Eric Pimentel, Wahab Akwe, and Akeem O'Connor Ward, right? And then in the midfield you had Juan David Cabezas, you had Jose Francisco El Gringo Torres, and you had Emilio Icaza up on top with Ricky Reese and Christian Pinzon. And I think the biggest surprise was the inclusion of Jonas Jelberg as a striker. So the question that I think is on the table, and I'll go ahead and ask it to you first, Jacob, is from what you saw in this match against San Antonio, do you believe that this should be, or this is the best starting 11 we've had all season?
Oh, by far. I think it really is. I mean, they proved it in that first half, not to mention. And it just, they start off so well, especially that starting 11. It seems like they have all this chemistry together. And it's perfect. Even with that back line, that defense looked phenomenal, not to mention winning possession in the midfield has been a little sketchy with RGVFC, and all of a sudden RGVFC kind of getting that with that midfield was big, and having the pressure, putting San Antonio on the back foot for that whole first half. That's a fantastic starting 11. Apparently, we only have starting 11s that are good for one half, but at that same time, with the tactics that we're able to exploit other teams, given that first half with that starting 11, it was fantastic having Gringo Torres, all these players that are finally together, was something that we just haven't seen in a while.
So San Antonio, from what I was talking with Harry that day after the match, and of course throughout the later couple of days, San Antonio usually has been playing with you could say a line of 3 in the back with almost like 5 midfielders, but it really didn't seem like in the first half it really didn't seem that San Antonio had an advantage in the midfield. A lot of the times, with when you play with 5 midfielders, you reduce the space for the opposing team, especially when you've only got technically 3 midfielders, right? In the case of RGVFC, but it really didn't feel like that. And I think one of the key aspects of it was the way that Wilmer Cabrera kind of set this team up to play out in the wings with Christian Pinzon and Akeem O'Connor Ward, especially out there on the left. I know we've criticized Wilmer about the fact that the team plays too much or focuses too much on out on the wings, But I spoke with Akeem today at practice, and that's one of the things he mentioned. He said that the fact of the matter is that San Antonio was playing with only 3 defenders, and you could call them your wingbacks that went up and tried to help out on the attack. But the way RGV played, they were always caught out of position, so that left a lot of space for Akeem and Christian Pinzon to take advantage of. And obviously, they were very key in this match. Akeem gets an assist off of that corner kick. Christian Pinzon ends up playing with a goal, and then Akeem O'Connor-Ward gets himself a goal right then as well from that same flank. So I honestly think the best part of it was that Wilmer Cabrera really studied San Antonio, studied their weaknesses, and was able to move his players around to exploit those weaknesses to the point that San Antonio was desperate. San Antonio was confused. They were lost out there on the field. They spent, I mentioned it on the video, that they spend more of their time fouling and complaining to the referees rather than trying to figure out how they are able to get past the pressure from RGV.
Oh, for sure. And I hate that. I also hate this cliche of like every rivalry, no matter what the record is, you throw the book of strategies out the window. No, both these teams, no matter which team they're playing against, are going to study so much, and let alone, yes, RGVFC play against San Antonio FC more than any other team, really, considering that that's just the way that it goes since you're so close together, and it's scheduling, let's be real, it's pretty freaking great in the USL until you realize that your team has 6 away games in a row, something like that. But yeah, it's one of those situations where, RGVFC, they did well. They studied, and it also helped that a number 1 seed or another number 1 team, San Antonio FC, thought less of RGVFC too. Coming into that match, it did help that it's like any other upset that ever happens, you don't think of your opponent as on the same level. And if that happens, sometimes that makes it worse for the team that is the better side per se.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like from what Jonathan Check, the San Antonio beat reporter for the Striker, he mentioned that at times it felt like the team was kind of getting a little bit complacent. Then they lost 3-0 against San Diego, and he mentioned that he felt that maybe that shakeup by San Diego would be kind of like a wake-up call for the team to refocus. And it seemed like, I guess the fact, number 1, that RGVFC had not gotten results to the point that they're in last place of the Western Conference, that they have been able to, or have not been able, to score goals very often. I felt like maybe that it was going to be an easy game for them. And I'm not going to lie, I honestly came into the match defeated in a sense that I really didn't see how RGVFC would be able to take down such a well-playing team. It's at this point of the season, it's no accident to see San Antonio be on top of the Western Conference, and on top of that, be one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the whole USL Championship.
Oh yeah, for sure. I as well kind of came in here, not necessarily defeated into the game, but because I knew that on the road, RGVFC have a little bit more luck. I'm going to bring up something that you hate when I do now, especially.
Here we go.
They have, well, But, I mean, it shows. You look up any other road game for RGVFC, they have the advantage of the ref. Yes, of course, it can benefit you and it can also hurt you, but not to the point where your team should lose a game. All because of a ref. Now, I'm not saying that in any way, but it can definitely help benefit if you get a foul put right in a box or a red card on the visiting team, something like that. But point with all of that is, coming onto the road, I thought, well, maybe they can maybe they can get a win. That was a case, but that was, of course, a long shot to me. I was just thinking, let's see. Let's let her rip.
And see, the thing about it is just the fact, we talked about it in previous episodes, is solid. Defensively, the team is solid. I mean, they're not the best defense statistically as far as goals allowed is concerned. They're not the best in the USL Championship or even in the Western Conference, but as far as expected goals against, as John Morrissey of USL Tactics usually mentions, they're top three. They're top three in expected goals against, which means this is a team that really doesn't allow opposing teams to get good opportunities on goal. So you have that solid foundation, right, where you don't allow a lot of expected goals or dangerous opportunities in your net. The problem was you couldn't score. I mean, RGV would create opportunities. I mean, you take a look at, let's say, the Hartford game against Hartford, against Las Vegas Lights at home, and it's like they were creating shots. The problem was a lot of them were not on target. And then you look at this match, and RGV had 11 total shots. 5 of them were on target, and you add 3 that were blocked by the defense, which meant that in this match, it seemed like RGVFC really fixed their accuracy. We joked around in the previous episodes that it seemed like our strikers were pretty much stormtroopers, right? Where it's like they were horrible in their accuracy. But there's a question that I have to ask you.
All right.
How much of this improvement in the attack was what's the word I'm looking for? How much of it was influenced by now having Jonas Fjellberg out on the field?
I'd have to say that there has to be some level of it for sure. I mean, you do bring up a good point. Even with that question, it's you bring up Jonas, and all of a sudden this team is now striking on goal. Again, having 3 blocked shots, which in total was 11, shots, and it's like it's the missing puzzle piece every single time we come on here talking about what's that missing puzzle piece. Where is he? Where is this player that we need? Apparently they were on the bench. Apparently they weren't here for a while because Jonas, you put him in the starting 11, and well, there's your goals. Of course, the last time that RGVFC scored 2 goals on the road before this game, really, in my eyes, was versus Oakland, when they had that much of a definitive first half, where they could put a team on the ropes of technically upsetting them on the road.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. My question is, will we see this at home, though? Will we see those goals being scored at home? There's a possibility, but before then, of course, they got to go to Las Vegas and all these. But, maybe it was the missing puzzle piece. Maybe it was, okay, put in a new 11 almost, put in Fjellberg, see what happens, and go from there. And sure enough, yes, that was a great move by Wilmer. Now, will the whole USL catch up and end up playing Jonas differently if he's in that starting 11 again? Maybe, if they're smart and take notes. Because sometimes a team that's in 13th doesn't deserve to be in 13th. I'm going to put a great example is Rio Grande Valley Volleyball. especially in Division 5A. 5A, normally you have Mackay, McAllen Memorial, Sherryland, and Nicky Rowe. At least last year, they were all in the, plus Pioneer, they were all in the same district. One of those teams weren't going to make the playoffs. All of them elite, could go to the Sweet 16, all of them, if, there was enough slots and they didn't play each other early on, which you normally almost always do in regional play. Yeah, you're going to always have that one team, is what I'm trying to say, that's going to look worse than they actually are. Now, I hate to say that, but it is true. This team has always been good, but hasn't had that piece to be great. And finally, I think we have that piece. A little too late, probably, but I'd rather see them try and make it than miss completely. Now, would I rather them lose by a lot this weekend? Maybe, but of course we'll get into that later. And yeah.
So I wanted to leave this this topic a little bit later on as we talk about the second half. But I think the fact that we brought in, how if it improved, if RGV's offense improved with Jonas Fieldberg on the field, brings up this good observation. And I want to get your thoughts on this.
All right.
So it's the second half, okay? RGV gets scored on, so it's 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
You need counters. Like if you're gonna be parking the bus or you're gonna be setting back to defend. Mm-hmm. Well, you still need a striker for in the case of a counterattack or, out on the wing, you got to score it. Okay, here's the interesting part. You had on the bench Adolfo Hernandez, a true striker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Wilmer Cabrera then instead decides to put in Robert Coronado, a defender / midfielder, as a number 9 or a false 9.
Mm-hmm. What
does that tell you?
He doesn't trust in his players. He doesn't trust in his bench somewhat. It's true. That's what it tells.
Or in just Adolfo Hernandez?
Well, in this case, yes, Adolfo Hernandez. But if we don't see a lot of players that are on the bench that don't get a lot of minutes, then he doesn't trust in them either. That's what I'm trying to point out. But in this case, for sure, he doesn't trust in Adolfo Hernandez. He trusts in Robert Coronado, who has been in the league for a while now. And yeah, it tells me something is happening in practice as well. Not to mention when he has started or been put in games, Adolfo Hernandez, of course, this was early on in the season or midway through, we saw that he was not the best striker when it came to trying to close. We did see that. Mm-hmm. He missed a couple of shots, and there were times when we should have ended up winning the game or tying the game up, and he didn't come through. So there are in those circumstances but in this case, like you said, he doesn't trust in Adolfo Hernandez. And we're sure, or at least I'm sure, that there's something going on, at least with, almost the mental side of it, because at this point, this man should be not starting, but should be subbed in when he's needed to sub in. Mm-hmm. Of course, Coronado, he scored goals too, so.
Yeah, but coming in from the back, via a surprise. I'll take the time real quick to take a look through the chat. So Harry asks, man, where did the SAFC scarf go? Tigres replaced it. Harry, my guy, it's right here. But at this time, I was so pissed off about the game that I took it off of display, at least for this week. So don't worry, it'll be back soon. The display of friendship will be there. I don't care if anybody makes fun of me about it. But during San Antonio Hate Week and just the way that the game ended, I didn't want anything San Antonio related while we were talking about the South Texas Derby. But it's nothing against you personally, Harry. So obviously, big shout out to Mike Reyes, the Stampede president. Thank you for tuning along. I hope you're enjoying the new format of the show as well. And guys, be sure to share it with your friends and let everybody know that we are back to live shows on YouTube, and of course, obviously, the audio podcast that will be available later on this week. So Mike says we had no size in the box on the last goal, and we'll be talking about that in a while. Ray of South Texas Border Sports says, what did Wilmer say today? We'll get to that later on. I see mucho estudio. Oh, come on, Ray. Hey, at least he didn't call me Pancho Gomez. But anyway, so Mike says SAFC really isn't that good. They had trouble all night. Pinzon finally had a good game, and ref didn't get. Okay, I'm gonna skip that one because let's keep it family friendly. I just hate that we couldn't finish the game. Again, subs coming in at the 91 plus minutes. Ya pa que? Easily should have been 4-0 in 30 minutes. He's talking about Fieldberg. He says you can tell he was tired around the 65th minute, and that's true, right? Because and that makes sense because he didn't really get a lot of minutes in the 11. He had a lot of time, a lot of weeks where he didn't play because there was the transfer still going on, so he wasn't 100% cleared by the league to be eligible to play. And obviously, it's kind of he was finally able to be eligible in the South Texas Derby, which also kind of proves into the fact like you've got somebody that's not 100% and you decide to put him in anyway over a guy that's 100%. You can say already used to the team and all of that, but that just goes to show how low Adolfo Hernandez has been in the squad. And speaking about that, about Adolfo, he says, just like last year, Wilmer had no trust in Kyle Edwards, and look at him now at Dynamo 2. And he didn't trust Azócar, look at him killing it in Oakland. See, here's the difference. Here's the difference, Mike. Yeah. And this is why I don't think that those two examples kind of fit into the situation with Adolfo Hernandez. And that's the fact that Kyle Edwards and Juan Carlos Azócar did show proof while they were at RGV that they were good players, that they were clutch in the moments when the team needed them. I mean, just take a look at the end of the 2020 season with Kyle Edwards. I mean, this team woke up at the end because of Kyle Edwards getting on a roll. Yep. Right? In 2021, I mean, Juan Carlos Azócar, who was used to playing all the time as a winger, now Wilmer Cabrera puts him in as a right back, and he adapted, and he was able to not only help offensively, but also grow defensively as well. To like you mentioned, right now he's killing it in Oakland as an outside back as well, which is something that I'm pretty sure Juan Carlos would have never thought ever, like in his mind, that he would be playing as a defender rather than as an attacker, right? So, but let's go back to the point that Mike mentioned about the free kick. That was so stupid. How is the referee going to call an offside in that situation?
Yeah. It still baffles me. Obviously, I can barely talk about it now because I don't understand it either. I don't know how you call an offside in that situation too, considering what all transpired. He looked onside to me. He looked fine to try and, it ends up hitting the back of the net in the end, but it was still an offside. It's frustrating. Again, they're not professional refs for a reason, even though they call themselves pro, which is completely ironic.
That's true. That's very true.
But it's weird. It was a very weird call in just the whole thing right there. I mean, and I know Harry said it on Saturday after the match. That took the cake for RGVFC to lose all their momentum. But it sucks that they didn't go back. It sucks that RGVFC at least didn't try again. They did not try and push forward again. It was what it at least looks like. But it's very difficult to say that considering I don't play soccer and I'm not out there for close to 90 minutes. Considering, I don't know, you play FIFA and sometimes you play like the My Career or the Living the Life of of an athlete, and you see that stamina bar go down very quickly in the second 45 minutes, there's a reason for that too. So yeah, it's that in general, just that play in general, very frustrating for the ref to call offside.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, like I said, so there really was no evidence that Eric Pimentel was ever offside. Obviously, in the broadcast, the production really wasn't that great because at the moment that Gringo Torres touched the ball, the camera was still directed at his face. Right, so you don't see at the moment that Gringo touches the ball, you don't see where the players are located in relation to the defenders. But it wasn't even a second right after he kicks it when it changes to the different angle where you can actually see the field, and you can clearly see that no RGVFC player was in an offside position. So I don't get where the linesman decided, oh, this is going to be an offside. Now a lot of people have been mentioning that, oh well, you know, at the moment the ball hits the post. Would it be? Well, maybe that's probably he saw that he was in an offside position. That's why he called it. But let's not forget that Jordan Farr, he deflected that ball, which creates a new play. And since the ball is coming in from, or since Eric Pimentel is behind the ball at the moment that that Jordan Farr touches it, there's no offside at all.
Exactly.
So wherever you cut it, it's just a bad, horrible call by the referee and the linesman. And here's the worst part, where they double dip on bad decisions. Once the play after ends, and San Antonio executes a free kick, the ball goes out on RGV's side. The linesman calls the ref over to where he's at, and they start discussing something. And the San Antonio broadcasters, the play-by-play announcer, you know, he's talking about like, why are they discussing? There is no VAR to overturn a play. If you already called it, you know, you got to stick to your guns. So that's where you can tell that maybe the linesman thought that he messed up, but
it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late. You can't change it anymore. And yet I say that, and remember what happened one game again here at HEB Park?
Yep, same
where
day.
the referee originally called a penalty, and then like he looks at the scoreboard, sees that the foul's outside, and he changes it outside, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, do you not know that even though you have video evidence from the scoreboard or something, obviously that's also a fault on the person handling the scoreboard. You can't have any instant replays on the jumbotron, but even if you do see it as a referee, you can't let that influence the decision that you already made. So overall, all around, a huge F to and not F to pay respects, but an actual grade F for the referees. Now, let's fast forward to the end of the game. Obviously, I've talked in the video about the first goal, you know, coming in from some. I guess you can say soft defending from Akima Connor Ward. I think that's pretty much self-explanatory. Gave too much space to Shannon Gomez, allowed him to be able to turn around easily and get the shot towards to the far post. But those ending minutes, okay? So Wahab Akwe gets called a foul outside the box. Okay? So Mohamed Abu, for the San Antonio player, goes up. He's setting up to execute the free kick. All of a sudden, like you start seeing some sort of confusion inside the field. Players looking towards the bench. You see the referee looking towards the bench. Well, it's Wilmer Cabrera or the fourth referee calling for substitutions to be made, and then there's this whole confusion because obviously you're defending a set piece. You don't want to come out and disrupt the location or the positioning of your defense. And in the end, Wilmer Cabrera makes the substitutions anyway.
Yeah.
What was going? What did you believe when you saw all of that going through? Did you feel like, yeah, this is the mistake that's gonna make us lose or lose the lead?
I didn't. Right at that time, I didn't think of anything. I was basically. I had it on my second monitor. I think there was another game going on as well at the same time, but I was still keeping an eye on Vitoro's game. And honestly, I didn't think that was going to lead us to lose, but it was weird. It is weird to sub right at that time. You sub any other time except for then, and Wilmer decides, oh yeah, I need to make substitutions. I bet you that's kind of what's going through his mind. It's like, oh yeah, I need to sub. Not that I want to, I need to. And it's a little too late as well in the first place, but he's like, all right, got to do it. Anyway, he subs and messes up that whole defensive box. And yeah, looking back on it for sure after the game, I'm like, oh yeah, that made no sense whatsoever to do. So yes, he's definitely, especially on that, to blame. Because chemistry, again, you go back to it. They had chemistry that whole game. Just keep them there for one more play.
And obviously, it's this whole thing about the timing of substitutions, Mm-hmm. You don't make your first substitutions until late in the second half, when you could tell that Christian Pinzon and Gringo Torres were gassed. Like, You could see them. They struggled to walk towards the end line because of how tired they were, which is good because it shows that those players gave it their all. They left it all on the field, which is what we asked for from these players, especially in a situation where you really want to get those 3 points, and you have to get those 3 points. It's imperative to get those 3 points, and they were on their way to do it, right? So, but the biggest thing is, for me, is you knew that the intentions by Wilmer Cabrera to make those substitutions were not tactical. Yep. It was just to burn seconds away from the clock.
Yep.
But you never want to do that when you're defending a set piece, whether it's a free kick or a corner kick, because mm-hmm. every player in the field already has an idea who they're going to mark, who they're going to try to avoid for them not to get into a position to be able to get it to score. Then all of a sudden you bring in not only one but two people.
Yep.
2 substitutions. You take out Ricky Reese, and you also take out, I want to say it was Akeem.
Yep.
I think he takes out Akeem in those substitutions as well to bring in Luka Milicevic and Frank Nadarsi. Mm-hmm. And there's one thing that I kind of mentioned that left me kind of questioning. But also Nick Villescas, brings it up. He says, we'd like to hear y'all's opinion as to why our tallest defender was in the wall instead of marking in the box. He brings up a very good point. Mm-hmm. Because San Antonio, 9 times out of 10, whenever they had a free kick around that area of the field, they didn't go for direct shots. They went for crosses, looking for the tall players like Mitchell Tainter, like Jasser Kamiri, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you knew they weren't going to go direct. So why was Frank Nadarsi in the wall? Now, was that a directive by coach, or was that a decision by the player? I brought it up yesterday in the recording of the Striker Tejas, and Roberto Silva did mention a lot of the times those are decisions made by the player inside the field. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, it's just these mistakes that kind of just added themselves, added up to the point of Mitchell Tainter gets a clear opportunity up in the air to make contact with the ball, and that ball ends up going sadly into the back of the net of Tyler Derrick. Mm-hmm. Frankly, like I said, it was so dumb because that left Luka Milicevic, who's not tall, I think he's about my height, and I'm 5'7". He left him marking to Mitchell Tainter and some other tall midfielder for San Antonio, and it's like, you already at a high disadvantage to begin with. Why even give them even more of an advantage in such a key play? It was just a mistake all around, and I know that both Emilio Icaza and Akeem did mention today that this team needs to learn how to close the games and stop making those dumb decisions at the end of the day that's costing them points. I mean, it's just crazy. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're correct. They do need to stop making these mistakes to close out the game because it's getting more and more annoying. That's happened for 6 years just about now. Maybe besides the inaugural season, and of course even then they were with Houston Dynamo. But it does not matter because we're talking about this year's squad, and they're still doing that exact same thing. It is frustrating, and it's weird. Like, even when it is the player's decision to do that, it doesn't. Like, they got to be smarter. They got to have that football knowledge, in a sense, that soccer knowledge. And it feels like this team is lacking that. And that is why we keep coming back here every Wednesday or Thursday and almost every podcast talking about that same thing of saying they did this wrong, the defense did that wrong because they made this mistake or something like that. And this time, it's on the players. So that's, that's very, very frustrating. It's just definitely starting to become a season to forget. And what more is there to say besides, this team has to get their act together to close out games because it's so easy to close these games out is what it looks like or seems like. But it's just either they can't score or things like that. And I bring up the Las Vegas Lights game at home considering they had the whole second half and almost the end of the first half with the advantage with the wind. The wind was to their back so much to where they could have struck from anywhere and had a chance in a goal and on target too. So it's just, it's been frustrating.
How much of this result is on the players and how much of this result is on Wilmer Cabrera?
I would say it would be about 60-40.
60 on Cabrera and 40 on the players?
Yes. I'd say 40 on the players because, again, it's another set piece. How many times have we been struck with that off of set pieces? That's the most frustrating part about it is, can't defend set pieces, but we sure as heck can score those set pieces. We have before this season, too. So there's that. But again, on that defensive side, or then, of course, on Wilmer's side, it's like, you can't be subbing players so late in the game. And then at the same time, those players need to at least have 10% left in their tank when they get subbed out. Not zero. That causes a chance of a pulled hamstring, a pulled calf, a pulled something when you leave them out for too long. And then they can't do anything in the first place because they're already so tired. Then they can't get back to a fresh center mid, a fresh attacker. They can't keep up with it because they're already so tired. So it's just a matter of playing your cards right with those substitutions, and he hasn't. It's timing them exactly when you see, because you will normally, at least I think, coaches have plan A and plan B. Plan A of, okay, if this player is going to be subbed in for this player, then we have to be ready to sub in this man for this player to match that. Even if we're not playing man-to-man, it's still that same deal of, okay, and then maybe we need to tweak this out, but our players will be ready for it. It also feels like or at least the whole team isn't teaching different formations and we have to stick to one the whole game. It's strange.
I want to get y'all's thoughts, everybody that's in the chat right now. How much of a percentage do you believe this is on Wilmer? How much of a percentage this is on the players? I'm going to give my opinion about this first. I'm going to go 70-30 on Cabrera.
Okay.
And both the good and the bad, right?
Yeah.
Because I definitely understand the negatives because it really affected us in the score line, right? And I made it very clear on Twitter and on that Twitter space that I made right after the game. I made it very clear that it was so dumb the way that we lost the lead with these dumb mistakes that are pretty much, it's coaching 101, right? And we already talked about that, okay? But you also have to give him credit with the way that he overall planned this game in the way his starting 11 went. I mean, you went to, like I mentioned, one of the best teams in the USL Championship and made them look fools in their own home. I mean, San Antonio had a couple of games where they didn't get scored on at home, and you come in and put 2 on them. Obviously, that says something good about the players that he chose, and obviously the tactics and how he ate Alan Morsina tactically. You know, even San Antonio fans have told me that Wilmer really planned this game really well in favor of RGVFC. Yep. The problem is, like I mentioned, is that his decision to make late substitutions when you could tell that all the players were getting tired, right? And then also making that mistimed substitution when you're defending a free kick. That ends up leading to the goal, right? And I think who was it? JVO brings up a good point. He says Nadarsa should not have been on the wall. Why didn't Wilmer tell him to go defend? That's also very true. If you're seeing something like that from the outside of the pitch, you're seeing that your tallest player is going up to there, and you're leaving your shortest player against these tall guys. Obviously, you as a coach, you have to yell at him, hey, go over there. Or even like players like Eric Pimentel, you know, who's pretty much the leader in the defense. If you're seeing that Frank Darcy's getting on the wall, like, no, I need you over there defending Mitchell Tainter, defending whoever, those tall guys, because you know, like I mentioned, you knew that San Antonio, Mohamed Abu was going to go for the cross instead of going direct. Yeah. And you already had enough players on the wall as it is. I think there was like 5 players on the wall. Right? So there was no need for Frank Nadarcy to go into the wall. You needed him out there defending against the towers. So I see his point. I see his point in Wilmer Cabrera should have been a little bit more vocal and telling Nadarcy, or even when he had him right next to on the sideline, tell him, hey, I need you, you're going to go in, but I need you to guard this guy or this guy, wherever he is, inside the box, and I don't want you for him to get close to the 6-yard line. I mean, those are clear instructions. If you're going to be defending, those are clear instructions on what you need to do. You don't leave it up to the players in such a critical moment, right? And at the end of the day, you know, RGVFC lose 2 valuable points at San Antonio. At face value, yes, it's a positive result because like I said, San Antonio is a really good team. RGVFC really in the position of the table really isn't. But given the context about what happened in the game, obviously fans are going to be mad. Obviously, you know, fans, including myself, are going to be disappointed on how RGVFC let those 2 points go.
Yeah, and it's the second time too that we have faced a top team and have looked better than them and have taken the lead in the first half, and let alone blow that lead and either lose or draw. And of course, the last 2 times have been draws. Sacramento Republic, perfect example. We kind of did the same exact thing. We took that lead, then, you know, it ended up being a draw. We took the lead against San Antonio FC by 2 goals. It ended up being a draw. Those are 2 top teams in the West. Yes, of course, Sacramento, you could say they're around 6th place. But again, you don't make the finals of an Open Cup by just sheer luck. no, you have a freaking good team, and especially even whatever seed, I will say this right now, whatever seed Sacramento Republic are in the playoffs, throw that away. They are a top 2 team by far.
Especially with the fact that you're playing two tournaments. Mm-hmm. Then you've also got midweek games in the USL Championship.
Yep.
And somehow they were still able to get wins against very tough opponents in the USL Championship. Mm-hmm. And you might say, well, there were MLS reserve players that they. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's MLS, and what matters is it's MLS versus USL. USL prevailed. And you took them all the way to penalties, and all of that is just added fatigue for Sacramento, and yet they're still able to get it done without complaining, without whining. I'm looking at you, Rayados. They had a huge workload. Now they just kept on going, and they're in the final, right? So it shows that they're a really good team. But at this point, we can say, oh, they did this or they did that. They played well, but they weren't able to get in there. But at the end of the day, RGV needs 3 points.
Yeah.
I don't care if you play beautiful. I don't care if you play ugly. RGV needs 3 points per game, and the more points that they lose, the earlier we can say they're going to be eliminated from contention.
Exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. And this calendar isn't going to be very easy, because if you look ahead, obviously you've got Las Vegas and Phoenix Rising back to back. Mm-hmm. Then you've got New Mexico United. You've got El Paso at Southwest University Park. Right? Yep. Mm-hmm. Then you've got Louisville City coming to HEB Park.
Yep.
So it's not gonna be easy, and you can't get yourself to a point where you have to go all out against these tough opponents. Obviously, if they do get the result, it's going to be statement wins. But why put yourself in a situation where you have to go for a miracle against these teams when you could have done that earlier in the season, put yourself in a comfortable situation, and at the end of it, why was it? Because you brought in players that in the attack that really were not fit for the job.
Exactly.
And this is all on Wilmer Cabrera as a sporting director.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's all on him as a sporting director. I know we go back just about every week we talk about it. It is on him. Considering you didn't have players that came in instantly. Mm-hmm. He also waited. And then the players that were supposed to come in either had, again, injuries, green card issues, whatever the case was. We didn't get them till about a month ago, which is insane. It should never happen like that. Yet it happens for us almost every year. It's stupid. It's moronic. That's not how you should run a team, a club at all. First day of the transfer window, you better get your butt in your seat and be on the phone with clubs to try and get yourself a player.
Before that, dude, being able to retain your players.
That as well. Don't know why he gave up so many different players that were really good to this team again. I know we all know one player for sure was never going to come back in the first place. Should have never been down here in the first place. Yes, it's Rodrigo Lopez. Great player, but again, should have never been down here because he was going to leave anyway after the first year because he loves Cali. And who doesn't love California? Exactly. I like it a lot too. The only thing is I don't like California drivers down here. That's a completely different topic though. But it's just it's a complete dumpster fire. This trash fire has gotten pretty big, if I may say so myself.
So now I ask you this question, and that is because at the end of this game, there was a lot of people on social media, and including right here in the chat, JBO mentions Cabrera needs to be out ASAP.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Now my question to you is Wilmer Cabrera in the hot seat at this moment?
Yes, that seat definitely got. Well, I take that back. He should be. Let me put it to you that way. Yeah, he should be. Easily should be in the hot seat. The only thing is, front office don't think so because, again, we're still getting points. We're still getting decent results, especially against top teams. They can, they can say that even though we're in 13th place. And again, the same thing of them always saying, this team is better than the results show. Sure. Then show the results that they deserve. But besides that, the seat is definitely warmer. But until we have that definitive result where we look horrendous, there's no way he's going to be on the hot seat. The only smart thing to do is to take him off his title of sporting director. But I don't even know if they'll do that. In my eyes, yeah, completely. He deserves to be on the hot seat and deserves to be fired from sporting director. Will they do that? Ownership probably won't. Because in the end, how is this team still here? Ray said it before. We were one of the first teams in the USL when it was Division 3 or something like that. So it's just a whole thing. And he deserves to be on the hot seat, deserves to be gone as sporting director, but I don't see that happening until a definitive 5-0 or something like that result happens this season.
So I know, despite all I criticize Wilmer, despite all I say that Wilmer messed up as a sporting director, I do agree with you that if in a perfect world, Wilmer Cabrera would be relieved from his sporting director duties and have him focus as just a head coach. I feel like he's balancing too many hats, and we probably don't have the best people, as a GM. Mm-hmm. I want to say it's his first stint as a sporting director or in a similar role. Yeah. With RGVFC in 2016, we obviously were a Dynamo affiliate, which meant that Matt Jordan, and I don't want to get too much talking about Mr. Core Values over there, but Matt Jordan was the GM that was in charge of both the Dynamo first team and, of course, RGVFC and getting them players. They were the ones that decided how the roster was going to be. Yeah. Same when Wilmer Cabrera was with the Houston Dynamo, obviously under Matt Jordan. With Club de Foot Montreal, also they had a general manager. He didn't make the decisions on who they signed or anything like that. He would give his input, right? Yeah. But now he comes into the situation where now he's the one that's supposed to be in charge of signing and being in charge of deciding who stays and who goes, and a direct, decision on that. Yeah. And so far, I think he hasn't done a decent job overall. Yeah. Because I'll say it this way. We know that from what Wilmer talked about in the offseason, what I asked him at the last day of preseason, he says that this is a long-term process. He felt that last year's team was not a good baseline for the long term. Obviously, we had a lot of players that were gonna go, like you mentioned, Rodrigo Lopez. I disagreed 100% with what Wilmer Cabrera mentioned. I wanted for the team to stay consistent and just build upon that because we had a good solid baseline result-wise. I don't know why Wilmer Cabrera decided to, throw it all away and start anew again, but that's on Wilmer. As much as I say anything, I'm not going to change his mind. But, he made those decisions, start anew. At the end of the day, I think Wilmer as a head coach, as far as the basics, the foundation, the creating an identity for the team, creating a solid defensive foundation, I think he's done a decent job with what Wilmer, sporting director, brought Wilmer Cabrera, the head coach. I think you bring in a player that really didn't have a lot of name. Like Wahab Akwe, you bring in Eric Pimentel, who was here last season. Exactly. You bring in Jonathan Ricketts from USL League One from Chattanooga. Obviously, you bring back Robert Coronado. You end up bringing as well Akeem O'Connor Ward from Oakland Roots, and he's built a solid defensive foundation. The mistakes that the defensive line had made were individual decisions by the players. But then again, that's on Wilmer to be able to, hey, you guys are making these decisions. We need to work on that you guys don't make them again. Whether it's exercises to, make sure that they keep their concentration alive for the 90-plus minutes. I don't know. I'm not a head coach. I don't have a coaching license, so I don't know exactly how that would work. But I feel like as a head coach, you also need to have a responsibility of the fact that, make sure that your players limit the mistakes that is making them lose positive results that they could have easily gotten. And obviously, let's not. I think we've kind of beaten the dead horse with the signings that they made as striker. With Frank Gaviria, with Adolfo Hernandez. Then you've got the whole situation with Nafiu Suleimana. It was a player that was announced in preseason, and he never came.
Exactly.
There's rumors about it being a paperwork situation with his former team. I have not been able to confirm anything, so it's all speculation at the end. But the facts are, you announce a player that you supposedly signed, but it turns out that you can't have him because you don't have the paperwork, to be able to bring him to the United States. And, you need you as a head coach, well, you got to test the waters and see, okay, you're dealing with a foreign team. You don't know exactly how the bureaucracy works in those countries, in those federations, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in South America. Well, South America, obviously, he has an idea because he's from over there. But, like, for example,
Oceanic, all of those places. The Oceanic division, which includes like Japan, Argentina. Like you said, all of those. You have to have that idea. And if you don't, yes, the best way is to test the waters, but at the same time, you test the waters 5-6 months before anything opens. Like right at the end of the season, even, you should be talking to players.
At least, I'm not saying that Wilmer Cabrera should never go on vacation. I think just like any one of us, we all deserve a vacation, from a year's day of work. But if you're going to go on vacation, you at least need to have have something prepared so that by the time you come back, you already have signings that maybe not 100% signed, but they're actually advanced negotiations.
Exactly.
So when you come back, all you got to do, just the last minute details, sign, we can announce that we have acquired this player, and now we won't lose them to other teams or the players that we already have. If you've got the intention of signing them and of extending their contract, by the time you leave, you've already got those signed and locked in.
Yep.
Now, is this a question of Alonso Cantu not giving him a budget and time, or it's just a Wilmer Cabrera kind of leaving it to the end? I don't know how the front office runs, but at the end of the day, it's like this has affected the team negatively. Now we got to start from scratch again, and hopefully now this is actually a long-term process if Wilmer Cabrera is going to be staying. We know that Wilmer Cabrera has mistakes, but I think Nick Viesca said it best. He says, I think Wilmer's the best we can get at the moment. So although he has his flaws, who would we get that can come in and work fast?
Yep.
That's a good point. Obviously, there could be some coaches that might be interested in the project. But let's be honest, I don't really think that the area or what we can offer really is attractive enough for some of the nation's or the league's top coaches in the USL Championship. That's just the way. That's just the way it is, right? We don't really have an ownership that is known to fully fund, to have a blank checkbook to make the signings that are needed. But I will say, going back to Wilmer Cabrera, I think he's gonna stay. I think he's gonna stay. I think overall he's left good stuff, but it's those little details that have affected us negatively. The worst part is that Wilmer's one of those coaches that everybody else is at fault, but he never publicly expresses where he as a coach or he as a sporting director messed up. We talk about it. Ever since he was in the Houston Dynamo, he's really one of those coaches that was quick to throw his players under the bus.
Yep.
And he did that with RGV a couple of weeks ago. He said, he said like, well, the question was, why is it that RGV can't score goals at home?
Yeah.
And he talked about how the players, they perform well in practices. They score a lot of goals. They make a lot of good crosses. It's just that at the end, when they get to the field, it's like they aren't able to replicate it. So it kind of like saying, like, accusing the players of having stage fright.
Yep.
He even threw ownership under the bus, and he didn't explicitly name them, but he did mention that the fact of the matter is they couldn't get the best players in the USL Championship because there wasn't enough budget from ownership to be able to get those kind of players. But where's the accountability from Wilmer Cabrera about Wilmer Cabrera? That's the thing.
All right, I agree. It's funny. We've heard this too. Somebody else. Our head coach before Wilmer, Tristan Echeverri, said that same thing with about the players when they wouldn't do good with crosses and things like that. And I remember, just talking to him, and he would kind of say that same thing. And he was even walking off at halftime. And he's like, we need to do like a better job. This is not what we practiced and stuff like that. Like he would say, this is not what we practiced. Why the heck are they doing this?
Yeah, but you got to remember.
He didn't throw him under the bus or anything, but it's true.
No, but you also got to remember, he didn't choose those players.
Exactly, yeah, Houston Dynamo did. Yes, it's different on that point. He wasn't sporting director, but I tell you, it's something happens in practice. Because if we're talking about that they practice something and then they do something completely different on the field, then there's something fundamentally wrong with just the way that this club is run in general. Because I know that this is kind of off topic, but it's true. This is not the first time a coach has been saying we didn't practice the way that we played.
That is a good point. That is a good point. I had totally forgot that Gerson Echeverri did say kind of the same thing. But as I mentioned, you're talking about players that were fresh out of college, that were some Houston Dynamo Academy signings. They didn't have a lot of experience. But now you have players that are experienced, like Gringo Torres, like Eric Pimentel, like JDC, like Tyler Derrick, and then they're having these issues, and But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not saying, don't criticize the players as a coach when they're doing something wrong, but you gotta be at the same time, you've gotta be honest about yourself as well, and be
self-criticism, self-meditate, or even criticism.
But be honest. Everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes. He makes mistakes.
For sure.
But when we make a mistake, like let's say for example, like if we say something stupid on social media regarding a player, regarding a coach, regarding front office, or we tell him, you know what, this guy can go F himself, blah, 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 on social media. Obviously, when we get called out for it, and we have in our earlier stages of Down in the Valley, we said, okay, we admit we messed up. We should not have done that. I remember one time where I called Wilmer Cabrera Jr. Pecho Frio. That was not fun. That was not fun.
Yeah, that almost stopped us completely.
Yeah.
It's like Jerson. Oh crap, Jerson's mad too.
Yeah, but I mean, it was. We kind of had we were kind of correct in saying, because he wasn't performing.
Yeah.
And right after that, he started having all these amazing games. Sure, the way we expressed it may not have been the correct one, and we just, we made the decision, we learned about it, and it's just experiences, but, to admit when we make mistakes, hopefully Wilmer kind of fixes that issue, because I think despite the low budget that I think he's saying that he has under Alonso Cantu, I think he's leaving a solid baseline for future years. But you just got to be able to get the key pieces to add to this and make it better. Because honestly, let's be honest, at the end of the day, the results say he's in 13th place. He's last in the Western Conference. I don't care how well they play or how much they dominate possession.
We're not winning.
You're not winning. You're not at the top of the table. And there's been coaches that have already been fired. Let's take a look, at Rick Schatz from Phoenix Rising. They were 10th or 9th in the Western Conference, but he got sacked. He got sacked. Why? Because Phoenix Rising has a high standard of what Phoenix Rising should be, and right now they aren't playing well. Bye-bye, Rick Schatz. I don't care that you've put us multiple times close to earning a championship back in 2020, 2021, even though they got or 2019. 2019. At the end of the day, it's like, what are the results right now? You're not in playoff position. Let's find a different coach that can probably help us, rescue something and hopefully make it back into the playoffs. Why? Because these results are not what Phoenix Rising is all about. And I think that front office may need to also raise those standards about what RGVFC should be. And let's not look at it exclusively as a business opportunity or how it will benefit financially from the team. You gotta look at it as well on a soccer standpoint. That this team needs to have some higher standards. We can't. I mentioned it when we were independent. They announced their independence. I said, now we don't have the Houston Dynamo as a scapegoat to say, oh, we're bad. We're not winning because the Houston Dynamo this, or this. Now we control our own destiny. Now we don't have Daddy Dynamo to blame. If we're doing bad, it's because we made the decisions that lead us to this particular scenario where we're 13th. And I think ownership needs to make a decision to improve in that aspect. Wilmer Cabrera needs to stand up and to take responsibility and fix that aspect. And I think the players as well. We talk about how good they are or how decent they are, but I think overall they also need some accountability to get themselves out of this situation. I don't know what's going to happen in the future if Wilmer's going to get another opportunity. That's all on Alonso Cantu. But I think at the end of the day, I mean, we all have our opinions, and we're more than welcome to voice them. On social media, on here on the podcast, or anywhere really. But let's be responsible about it as well. Last thing we need is to find out that Wilmer Cabrera's car was lit on fire like it happened in Argentina. Because that's not good. You guys have to remember, and I need to remember this myself as well. Soccer is the most important thing of the least important things in life, and we need to understand that as well. We can be active, and I'm very open about that. That the fan base needs to be active and talking about the team, saying what they don't like about the team, et cetera, because we care. But we can't let that take control of our lives. So just leaving it out there. But Jacob, any last words before we go?
No, we'll see what happens. I think it's this weekend when we play Las Vegas. This will be a defining moment for the team's year, I think. This week's game or weekend's game or whatever. That's going to be a big match, like I said. And other than that, not much else to really say. I think we hit everything that was needed. Yeah, we'll just see what happens from here on out.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, be sure to do so and click on the little bell so you get notifications whenever we upload or we go live. We are inviting you all as well to check out the audio version of the podcast in Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, and on Anchor FM or any other of your favorite podcasting platforms. Be sure to also follow Jacob on his Twitch channel, The Overreacted Gamer, where he does a lot of, he has his own little podcast about racing.
Yes.
He does simulation racing and iRacing and other things like that as far as gaming is concerned. Be sure to also check out the Striker Texas, where I will be hopefully writing an article, an interview with one of our GVSC's players. As soon as I get some more details confirmed, then I will be relaying that on our social media at Down in the RGV on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And of course, you can follow me on my personal account at Ochoa_8 on Twitter. If you guys have any hot takes, any opinions that of what we talked about on the show, please don't hesitate to reach out to us on the social media, tweet at us, and we're more than welcome to continue the conversation through there, because that's where we're here. We're here to start. We're here to give you all a platform as a fan base to talk about this team, to learn more about this team, and you know what? It could also be we learned something from you about this team. We don't know everything. We don't claim to have absolute knowledge about the Toros. I mean, that's why we're here. We're here to grow each other, grow this fan base up, and learn from each other. But guys, that's gonna be it for this week. We thank you so much, and we'll see each other in the next episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. Have a good night.